Hello and welcome to KLAA Community Cares, a program that helps us understand the needs in our community and introduces us to experts and organizations who are trying to make positive changes in Southern California. With your host, Tammy Trujillo.
And we're glad you're with us today on Community Cares. Our guest today is Pat Bell. She is the Director of Development for House of Ruth. Now, you may have heard about this organization, but I think there's probably a lot you don't know. And we really want to talk about the issues that House of Ruth is working and dealing with on a daily basis. And down the road, we'll talk about how you might want to get involved. So, Pat, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Tell us, what is House of Ruth for those who have not heard or explored the organization?
House of Ruth is a domestic violence agency that serves San Bernardino County and Los Angeles County. We've been in place for about 35 years, and we provide a broad range of services that assist people that have experienced domestic violence within their household, and we help them on their journey to escape and healing.
Why is it called House of Ruth? I know I've been asked that question before, so let's get that one off people's minds.
Sure. You know, House of Ruth is a name that has been coined for agencies that help women, and, you know, it goes way back to the biblical story of Ruth, and she opened her home to helping other women that, you know, needed assistance and sought shelter. So, you know, as time passes into our contemporary age, House of Ruth is a name that has, you know, been very common for agencies that assist women.
Okay. I know one of the comments, and I'm sure you hear it all the time when you're talking about women who are in an abusive situation. Mm-hmm. Why don't they just leave? Pack up and leave. Go. Why are you staying when you know bad things are going to happen?
Sure. You know, it's a very difficult decision for a woman to decide to leave. There are a lot of barriers that hold them back. I think some of the primary things is, you know, when you study the characteristics of a batterer, often the women are very suppressed within their own household. They're isolated. They're not able to reach out to family members or friends because the batterer prevents them from doing so. And over the course of time, they become they lose their self-esteem and become very reluctant to even speak out or ask for help. You know, other barriers that are in place is, where am I going to go? How am I going to support myself? Where am I going to live? You know, so these are all things that we help with. When they do seek services and come to us, we help them formulate a plan, and we help them, you know, rebuild their self-esteem to understand that, yes, I can make it on my own. You know, so it's really just educating people and assisting them in knowing that there is a network that can help them. There is a support group that can help them.
Are they feeling they're feeling totally alone in this?
Absolutely, it's very
circumstance.
It's very common for a victim to feel like they're the only ones going through this, and you know, I would encourage. You know, if anyone's experiencing something where they're just feeling alone and isolated, if they get an opportunity to call our hotline, you know, they can talk to people that will help them realize that they're not alone. You know, we serve thousands of women each year, and once women come into our agency and receive support services and talk to other women that are going through the same thing, they realize, wow, I'm not alone. You know, there are other people that understand what I'm going through, and that helps them all together build their courage to carry on and move forward.
Let's give that hotline right now so people listening have it, Pat.
Sure. Our hotline number, it's a 24-hour toll-free hotline. It's 1-877-988-5559.
988-5559. Okay, 877-988-5559. It's a 24-hour hotline. Is it an anonymous one? There's nothing going to happen if somebody calls?
Yes. In fact, everything that we do here at our agency remains confidential. We are bound by very strict confidentiality, so anyone that calls in, you know, you can trust that you're safe with us. And, you know, we can offer support, advice. We can offer you referrals. You know, if we're not able to provide a service that you need, we can certainly give you a referral that will get you the help that you need out in the community.
What kind of women, is there a profile of the kind of woman who is in an abusive relationship? Or is this really across the board?
You know, domestic violence is clearly across the board of all socioeconomic demographic. There is no specific type that incurs this. It can happen in any household, and I think that you would be surprised to learn that 1 in 3 women experience battering at some point in their life. With teens, 1 in 4 teens experience teen dating violence. You know, so we work really hard both on a preventative basis to educate. We do a lot of presentations out in the schools to educate the youth about what is a healthy relationship. But for, you know, a type of woman, I would say absolutely not. Anyone this can happen to anyone.
Any age. So we're talking down into the teens. Are we talking about up into the latter years?
Up until, you know, seniors.
Really? Seniors?
Absolutely, sure.
See, that's a picture, Pat, that is, I think, on both ends of the spectrum, from very young to older. I think at the ends of the spectrum, we just can't imagine that.
Right. And often, you know, people feel that there's nowhere for them to go. There's no place to get out. There's no place to escape, which is why crisis shelters are so critical, you know, throughout Southern California. You know, we operate a 24-hour shelter. We offer a safe place for people to go and stay. And if you decide that you're ready to flee the situation and get yourself and your children safe, all you have to do is pick up the phone and call.
Why does this kind of thing occur? I know there is no answer to the question I just asked you, Pat. I know that. But from your experience, can you shed some light on why relationships become abusive? I mean, we're talking about 2 people who got together because there was an attraction. There was hopefully love at some point, at least. Mm-hmm. And now it's denigrated to this warfare. Yeah.
You know, it's hard because there's human characteristics. You know, I think all couples across America, you know, disagree. And when you cross the line of, you know, treating a human with respect and cross the line of, you know, physical hitting or name calling or degrading a person or, you know, holding them captive or preventing them from going out into the workplace or out to visit their family and friends. You know, those are just behaviors that, you know, go beyond normal disagreement within a relationship. You know, we often talk about healthy relationships versus unhealthy relationships. Healthy relationships are built around trust and respect and treat each other with mutual kindness and, you know, if you disagree, work through it and move forward. Mm-hmm. Unhealthy relationships are all around power and control. And in abusive relationships, a batterer is a controller. A batterer is someone that exhibits extreme power and control over another person. And, you know, we try to teach the difference in that and how to break free from that cycle of violence.
Is there, obviously there's got to be some times, but how likely is it that the first time is the last time?
Statistically, national statistics state that a woman will leave a relationship 7 times before she leaves for good.
Wow.
You know, those are really broad numbers, but we do see instances of, you know, if a woman decides to leave and she, you know, let's say she escapes to her mom's house or her friend's house, mm-hmm. you know, and the batter will come back around and apologize. I'm sorry, please come back. I'll never do this again. Now, there's a lot of underlying factors that go with this, fear being one of the primary ones. You know, afraid to take the permanent step. Perhaps the children, you know, there's children involved. So, of course, there's, you know, wanting to hold the family together. There's many, many things that go into why a woman might return. You know, but they will reach a point where, you know, they've had enough and they're ready to make the change in order to save their own lives as well as their children's lives, and they'll make that permanent step to escape.
So if it happens once, the likelihood of it happening again, no matter how repentant the spouse is a pretty good bet.
Yeah, it's a pretty good bet.
Wow.
Yeah.
We are talking with Pat Bell. She's the Director of Development for House of Ruth. I want to give out that hotline, Pat, as we head to a break here. It's 877-988-5559. It's a 24-hour, no obligation, anonymous hotline that you can call if you're in a situation and you feel like you need some help and somebody to talk to and maybe some answers. That would be the number to call. Who's on the other end of that phone, Pat?
You know, we have the 24-hour hotline staffed with advocates that have a very high level of expertise with domestic violence. We have a wide variety of people that serve on that hotline, whether it's a volunteer or a staff member. Mm-hmm. Broad demographics on the hotline as well, from, you know, a young recent college graduate up to a senior citizen that volunteers her time with us. So I think that whoever calls in will receive wise counsel, you know, a compassionate listening ear, and the ability to give them the resources that they need to get some help.
Okay, once again, that hotline, 877-988-5559. There's a lot more to talk about today on Community Cares with House of Ruth. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Jada De Laurentiis. My brother Dino was so funny. He was always smiling. When he was diagnosed with melanoma, we were in shock. We didn't know anyone who had skin cancer. He died from a mole, the size of a thumbtack. Melanoma can happen to anyone. Every hour, someone dies from melanoma. It doesn't have to be someone you love. Take action at curemelanoma.org. Go to standuptocancer.org to learn more.
And now, back to KLAA Community Cares with Tammy Trujillo.
And we're back on Community Cares. We are so happy you're with us today. We're talking about the issue of domestic violence and with an organization, the House of Ruth, that helps women get out of abusive situations. With us is the Director of Development for House of Ruth, Pat Bell. And Pat, what are the signs of domestic violence? I mean, obviously, if somebody smacks somebody else, we know that. But how can it start? What's the small sign at the beginning that we're in trouble here?
You know, I think some of the simple things, if you're frightened of your partner's temper, you know, if you're afraid to disagree, walking around on eggshells at home, you know, of course, if you've been hit or shoved or pushed, you know, that's always, you know, a big warning sign. Maybe your partner is excessively jealous. Maybe your partner demonstrates stalking things like checking your cell phone, always asking questions, where have you been, why weren't you home on time, excessively calling work. Those are all, you know, signs that there might be something going on. I will tell you that our website is a great resource. We've got a little section on there that you may be abused if, and there's, you know, many criteria that you might fit into if you wanted to take a look at our website. You could see if some of these symptoms are things that you experience.
What's that web address?
It's www.houseofruthinc.org.
Okay. I have heard in stories I've covered on the air over the years, talking with the victims of domestic violence, that when they're asked the question, I think they're always asked the question, why didn't you leave earlier? The answers I've gotten sometimes are, he said he would keep the kids. He said he would kill my dog. They stay to protect somebody, some being. How do you deal with that? Because that's got to be, I mean, that's a woman's, that's just part of our nature is to protect.
Yeah, that's part of the mental warfare that goes on within the household. It is common for a batterer to threaten, I'll take the kids, I will flee, you'll never be able to find us, you'll never see your children again. That's very, very common. It's a common tactic.
How do you deal with it?
It goes back to the power and control. You know, I think that when a woman reaches out for help and when she starts to get support group or counseling and sees that the impact of staying in the scenario and having the kids witness what's going on at home is more detrimental than trying to escape. the fear of escaping is clearly there. The fear of starting over on your own is there. The fear of him finding you and possibly killing you or possibly stealing the children is there. However, it far outweighs staying in the situation and having the kids witness the trauma that may be going on at home. It's interesting because we do find that often abuse and battering repeats itself generationally, particularly with young boys. And we do quite a bit of counseling and therapy with young boys that come into our programs to help educate them on healthy relationships, because those young boys will grow up and often repeat what's happened, what they saw.
That was, you just hit my next question. They're learning that this kind of behavior is okay.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They're learning by watching, if mom isn't leaving, it must be okay.
Yeah. And often the children, you know, they will come in to our program and, you know, just have bad coping mechanisms. And, you know, it exhibits itself at a child level with, you know, temper tantrums and inability to, you know, behave well in a social setting at school or something like that. And we've got an excellent staff of trained counselors on board that deal with trauma in the home and, you know, the traumatic impact and how to cope and deal with those types of things, whether it's happened to the mom personally or the children have witnessed it. So, you know, that's one thing that I believe we provide a great service to the community, is just the ability to get some counseling that will heal and adjust the behaviors that we see, especially with the kids.
Where are our laws in terms of dealing with men who are abusive? Are our laws protecting women and punishing?
Yes, they are.
Perpetrator?
Yeah, we have quite a few laws in place that are very supportive of a victim of violence. Women will shift from victim to survivor, and there are laws within the workplace that protect women against needing to take a leave of absence from their job. Mm-hmm. We do often educational sessions with employers that teach them how to handle it if you know that you have an employee that's going through a situation like this. How do you reach out to them? How do you bridge the confidentiality that they're looking for because they're afraid they're going to lose their job?
Right.
How do you keep your other employees safe if you have someone that's stalking the workplace? And if the woman needs time off to go seek medical attention, if she needs time off to literally go into a confidential shelter somewhere and take 30 days out of her life to start over, can you help her relocate? Can you secure her job for her? Laws ask that employers do that. So there is kind of a mandate in place that, you know, will protect a woman and give her the opportunity to continue to hold her job. But, you know, employers have to work together with her in order to make that happen.
At least the laws that apparently seems are catching up
mm-hmm.
to the size of this problem. Mm-hmm. You know, you see this topic a lot on movies, on television, mm-hmm. Lifetime movies. And, it, you know, once the woman has the support or courage or whatever she needs to get out, there's always a happy ending, and she's on her own and she's self-sufficient and everything's fine. How often, Pat, I mean, is that possible to get out of a situation that's perhaps been going on for years and really get back on your feet? I know a lot of women are probably, who might be listening in that situation, saying, I just don't know that I ever could have my life back. Can they have their life back?
Yeah, I can think of a couple of women that have come through our program that have just really great success stories. There's one in particular that comes to mind that went through a harrowing experience and was actually almost killed. She and her child, had a really violent incident in front of her home, mm-hmm. and she was hospitalized. The child was hospitalized, and the batterer was arrested and later prosecuted. And the charges accelerated to become attempted murder. So he's got a very long sentence in prison, mm-hmm. fortunately.
Yes.
The emotional result of that was huge, and it took many years for this client to heal and recover. However, with the help of services that she received through our agency and with counseling and the children's counseling, she now today is working full-time. She actually has secured a job with a social service agency. She's going to college to complete her degree in social services because she wants to give back and help other women based on the experience that she went through. She now has career direction to get in the same field that we're in.
Wow.
So
that is great.
It's very exciting.
No
and
kidding.
Her kids are doing great. They're thriving in school, and she's on her own now. She's doing fine.
So you can come through it.
Mm-hmm.
You can come through it. Let's talk about this teen dating situation because, wow, that is, I'm sure it's been going on all along, but it's certainly come into the spotlight in recent years. You're seeing that more? Is it more than before? Or?
It is more than before, and I think that again, it's the power and control cycle. Young men, young boys see a lot of violence in the media.
Right.
A lot of things on TV, a lot of things in movies. There may not be as much education on what is healthy behavior. They may be mirroring what they see at home. And it may be, you know how people are always kind of showing off in front of each other, just the ownership of the boyfriend and girlfriend and, shoving and hitting or grabbing someone. These all might be signs of showing off in front of their friends.
What a way to do it.
Yeah, they're not appropriate. So we really, really try to, work with both the boys and the girls, talking about, treat each other with respect. It's not okay to name call. It's not okay to downgrade someone. It's not okay to bully. The intimidation factor just doesn't work. And teaching the girls to speak up, teaching the boys to be kinder and treat your girlfriend with respect. Those are all things that we really try to get into the schools and teach. We recently just did a very successful teen awareness program at Montclair High School, and it was received very well by the kids. The students really participated actively, and there was some really great forum discussions around it. And it's good that we're getting to a younger generation just to start at the preventative stage.
Well, let's talk about the abusers for a moment. We've talked about a woman recovering from this. Can an abuser become, I don't know how I want to phrase this, a good person? Can he stop and begin being correct?
I think anyone can change. I know that there are quite a few batterer programs out there, anger management programs. Based on what we do, we focus primarily on helping the victim, not the abuser.
Right.
But I think that it really goes down to the core characteristics of a person and if they want to change.
What will happen, Pat, if somebody calls that hotline right now? What will begin? How will the process go?
The person calling in, usually doesn't know where to start. So we're trained to ask a lot of questions around what's going on, and the very first questions that we ask are you in a safe place to talk? Because if you're calling from the bedroom and the batterer is in the kitchen, that could really blow up.
Absolutely.
So we encourage the caller to get to a safe location to be able to talk to us. The call may take anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes, depending on, how much we need to flesh through. But if we do ask enough questions, find out that you are in an unsafe situation, you are ready to make the change and ready to get out of the house and leave, we will walk you through the steps of how to do that. All of the shelters, we work very actively with all of the local shelters, including our own, and shelters are based on bed space that's available. If we have beds available and we've got the space, great. If you need the services and the support, we can take you in right now. Let's talk about how to do that. If we are full, we have a daily roster, I guess you could say, of where spaces are available. And we will help you. We will get you to where you need to go. So don't feel like we're going to just say, no, sorry, we're full. We'll find a place for you. and help you, make a plan. If you need to get the kids from school, gather as many belongings and documents as you can. Those are the types of things that we can help you with. Now, if it's an emergency crisis and you just left and you don't have anything except your purse and your car keys, that's okay. We'll help you. We can do all of that. We can give you clothing. We can give you the hygiene things that you need. Just get safe. Get safe. Come here and get safe, and we will help you do that. And you can regroup and, stay here for a period of time, and then we'll help you move forward into what are the next steps.
Gosh, just as you're describing that, I cannot fathom that level of desperation. It's just incredible.
If it's life-threatening, it is desperation, and we save lives. We save lives every day. There are levels of volatility that go on, and sometimes it can be urgent. Sometimes we'll get calls from law enforcement that are in a house saying, she can't stay here anymore. That's it.
Wow. So good you're there.
Yeah.
So good you're there. Let's give out the hotline again. It is 877-988-5559. It is 24 hours. Anonymous if you want it to be. People there to help and help right away. Pat, thank you so much. Thank you so much. If somebody would want to volunteer with you, how would they go about doing that?
Sure. We are always looking for people that want to support our agency. Again, I would direct you to our website, houseofruthinc.org. There is a section on there about how to volunteer. I will tell you that our volunteers are actually trained, and they complete a 40-hour training class in order to participate with assisting women. And because it's such a unique, field that we work in, we need to make sure that people really understand the nuances around victims. So we do ask that they go through the 40-hour training class.
Sure.
But there's many, many opportunities. You can volunteer and serve on our hotline. You can come in and work with the kids. You can help us process and sort through some of the donations that we might be receiving. There's lots of different ways to volunteer.
Okay, excellent. houseofruthinc.org. Again, the hotline 877-988-5559. Pat Bell, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for the good work you're doing. Pat Bell, the Director of Development for House of Ruth. That's this edition of Community Cares. We're glad you were with us as well. We'll see you next week.